When the Royal Enfield Interceptor was launched, I said it was like a rough diamond, ready to be dilapidated. But over the years, I discovered that things are not that simple. It seems to be the type of bike that, if modified too much, could easily go bad. And if you change it just a little, it will be fine, but not extraordinary. In other words, it's hard to figure out the sweet spot. And it is precisely at this point that today's project is a perfect example. Nothing too elaborate, and nothing too simple. Just the right choices to achieve an excellent result. Welcome to Racertv. Do you know that kind of motorcycle that seems perfect right at first glance? That was precisely my thought when I saw this beautiful project for the first time. And the most curious thing is that it doesn't even seem like an overly complicated project. You've probably seen several custom interceptors with a similar approach. If this is your case, you will certainly be wondering why this one looks different. And when I say different, I also mean better. It is precisely for this reason that this Royal Enfield deserves our special attention, to discover the secret behind this beautiful posture. This is Aditya Deshmukh's latest work. He is the owner of Mean Green Customs, located in India. You probably remember him from this project. When I introduced this beautiful Harley about 5 years ago, I said it had a muscular look. And looking at this Royal Enfield, it seems like Aditya is an expert in achieving this quality. If you look at this transition, you will notice that the level of changes appears to be relatively simple. But when we see this Interceptor from another angle, things are very different. Notice how it appears stronger, balanced, compact, and very muscular. As I usually say, it looks like it has been injected with steroids. These tires are undoubtedly the secret that makes this project so engaging. If you look at the original version of the Interceptor, you'll see that it has all the features of a classic motorcycle. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you remove the mudguards, the narrow tires begin to show their limitations. In other words, the tires are too narrow for such a large engine. But let's take this opportunity to see two other customized Interceptors that I presented in the past. As you see, both builders chose high-profile tires to give the wheels more volume. I have to recognize that this choice works well even when we see the bike from the side and front perspective. The biggest problem is in the rear section. No wonder there are no pictures of the project showing the back. This is the main reason why I liked this project so much. I always thought that the Interceptor's narrow tires were its biggest limitation. And this beautiful project manages to reveal all the potential that Interceptor has for customization. And how far does the so-called potential of this rear tire go? I would say very far. And the front tire doesn't disappoint either. The big question is, How did Aditya manage to fit such wide tires on the Interceptor? Believe it or not, the swing arm is still factory original. However, both rims are obviously wider, but at 17 inches in diameter. The entire front suspension came from this Ducati model, which explains why the front section has such a muscular presence. Several parts were completely handmade, such as the front fender, side covers, the two exhausts, seat, and the rear cowl. The beautiful exhausts were very well thought out, because they have two hidden functions. Place the motorcycle apparently closer to the ground, and this more prominent curve, which helps fill the space between the engine and the front wheel. Another interesting detail, there is not one single joint in this entire piece. The rear cowl is undoubtedly one of the important points of interest of the project. Aditya placed an acrylic plate in the center, with an LED strip inside, creating a beautiful rear light. Subtle, discreet, and seems to work very well. When it comes to the overall stance, there are several strategic details that make a big difference. Unlike most, this tail hides the subframe tube. But notice this little curve. If you look closely, you will see that, although it is out of alignment with the seat, it achieves an elegant connection with the frame. Another very interesting detail is the shape of the side covers. Observe the alignment of this crease, with the cylinder fins reaching the point of the tail section, and also this other crease aligned with the shock absorber cylinder. All these small and subtle details convey a more dynamic appearance to the project, which also means that Aditya was very insightful on his work. But here's an important question. Does this Royal Enfield really need two tires as wide as these? And my answer is, yes, it really does. Because during the building process, Aditya tried out more conventionally sized tires. And as you see in these photos, they look good, but they don't look spectacular. I understand that for some, these tires may look an excessive choice, but aesthetically, they make all the difference. In other words, this is one of those cases where size really matters. Thank you for watching Racertv. And as always, I hope to see you on the next video.